But I have a guest with me this evening, unusually beautiful and unusually bright, if I may say so. She can only go by the name of Roxana, for reasons which will become apparent, because she's Iranian, born and raised during the Iranian Revolution, from a family of political activists, left-wing activists, who oppose war on Iran, by the way, but who are, well, let's just say, not best friends with the current regime of Mr. Ahmadinejad and his like. Now, so far, so interesting, but it gets even more interesting because Roxana went from religion and from the Iranian Revolution into rock and roll. She began to travel with the rock and roll bands, not the vintage 40 years ago ones, but perhaps even raunchier than those. And she's written a book which is going to be published by a major publisher next year. Sorry to be so secretive, but it's a very, very sensitive book, combining as it does sex, Iran, and rock and roll. Roxana, welcome to the mother of all talk shows.
Hi, thank you.
Tell us about this book.
Well, it's about my life experiences. So I'm combining my childhood in Iran, which was during the revolution in the 70s, and, well, it happened in 1979, and the war with Iraq. I'm writing honestly about how I felt as a child during the war and after the revolution, when I had to sort of wear we were forced to wear the hijab. So and combine it with my adult life with rock bands. So the excesses of rock.
Well, you don't wear the hijab, presumably.
I don't. I just
well,
love
it's
the
going to
rock
be a
and roll.
wild. It sounds like it's going to be a wild book, and it's a wonderful title: "Sex, Iran, and Rock and Roll."
Thank
I
you.
mean, it's combines most of my interests, I must say. This is George Galloway. This is the mother of all talk shows. We heard from Roxana, a child of the Iranian Revolution, who escaped from the chador of the Revolutionary Guard's imposed uniformity, only to emerge as a rock chick, and now to write about it. Here's Steve in Lincolnshire. He was born in Iran too. Steve, go on.
Is Roxanne there?
She is.
Hi.
She'll talk
Roxanne,
to you too.
Hi.
Be very, very aware of George Galloway because he speaks with forked tongue. And he's probably a supporter of the current regime in Iran, so I'd be very, very careful.
Well,
Is that all you've got to say, Steve? Not only is it all he's got to say, he said it and ran away. Oh, you big, bold man, you.
obviously
Roxanne.
I can't think for myself then, really. I'm being brainwashed here.
Brainwashed
I'm
by
sitting
me,
here.
yeah.
My brain has been programmed.
Here's me thinking I was doing you a favour for your book.
Well, I can't speak for you, George, or you can answer that yourself.
Well, I'm not a supporter of the Iranian regime. If I were, I wouldn't have had you on my programme. I've never been to Iran. Listen, you coward that made that call and ran away. Just you listen to me. I've never been in Iran. I've never met an Iranian leader. I don't even like the Iranian regime. He's back. Steve.
Steve, yeah, it's Steve here. I don't know what happened, but somebody cut me off.
Ah, nobody cut you off here, son. It must have been the Secret Services.
It must have been, yeah.
Now, justify that foul allegation that you made to poor Roxana that she was somehow a pawn in my game.
No, I wasn't implying that. Of course I wasn't. No, it's just that, Mr. Galloway, if there's an obnoxious regime on the earth, you'll always seem to be very closely associated with it.
Well, but there's the funny thing. I've just told you I'm not remotely associated with it in the case of the Iranian regime, and I don't regard it as one of the most obnoxious regimes on the earth. It's just a regime that I don't support. I've never been there. I've never met them. I don't support them. How's that?
But do you support them in their political aspirations?
No, I don't. I've just told you I've never been there, never met them, and don't support them.
Right.
I just don't understand your attack on George, saying that he's, he's told me that
Well, it's
he's...
just pure blind prejudice. He knows
What was
nothing.
the point of that?
He knows
Can I
nothing
ask?
about my attitude to Iran, obviously. You're stark, raving bonkers. His Excellency, Dr. Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, President of the Islamic Republic of Iran. Your Excellency, President Ahmadinejad, thank you very much for joining me on The Real Deal on Press TV. It's a very significant interview. I have police protection in London from the Iranian opposition because of my support for your election campaign. I mention this so you know where I'm coming from.
Iran is a great, ancient, sophisticated. Of course, the religious importance of the supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, and that's a title that you're not entitled to deny him, I can assure you of that, any more than I am, is a revered figure, has a special place in the Iranian constitution.